wait, Neil, stop, wait. Okay, there you go. Now go.
Okay. Are you all good?
I just want you to look at the camera more.
I don't like doing that.
Okay, we're good.
I'm going to start out, I have to preface. The preface is probably going to be longer than the actual poem that I'm going to read. But I put a lot of work into it. And a lot of that work was like cutting large portions out and just like simplifying it and blah, blah, blah you don't need to know. But what you do need to know is, got to see my cousin Steven this past weekend. I haven't seen him for a year and a half. He moved down to San Diego, I want to say 3 years ago, 4 years ago, somewhere in that. So I mean, I've seen him like twice since then, and we were really close. We grew up together. His mom is my mom's sister. His dad is my dad's brother. That's not incest, by the way. Anyway, so when he was 17, he was having a whole bunch of problems with his dad and his mom. His mom has MS and just really tore the family apart. Anyway, like I said, the preface is going to be longer than the actual poem. So he ran away and he was basically living out of his car for a while. And so I wrote a poem about him, kind of as a metaphor of him as his car. So here it goes. Oh, by the way, he got real creative with decorating his car, and lots of like spray paint and stenciling, and one of the things that stood out most in my memory was him spray painting the words, "Violence, jack off," on the side of his car. So he's a special kid, I love him. I call it charity jack off. Steve, you're a beater, a junker, a gets from A to B, and that's all that really matters, with white stenciled profanities on your purposely unlocked doors, convinced that a thief might have greater needs for that which you hold. Like I said, it's really short. I put a lot of work into it. Those words were chosen very carefully.
Really good.
Yeah, that was great, actually.
Alright, I can do it again. Call it charity jack off again. Part 2. Are we done with the giggles? Alright. Steve, you're a beater, a junker, a gets from A to B, and that's all that really matters, with white stenciled profanities on your purposely unlocked doors, convinced that a thief might have greater needs for that which you hold.
Nice.
Okay, and I have something else, and it's kind of not traditional for the style of open mic night, but last semester I had to drop out of school. I couldn't afford to go, and it was just a whole bunch of financial crap, and I really miss it. I loved being in schools up at UW Oshkosh, and it was just a completely new experience for me. Went to Catholic school for 7 years. I don't know how many of you went to Catholic school. I know some of you have. It's hell. Just hate it. Anyway, so one of my English classes, that was a weird class. It was like pseudo-English class. We'd write papers about writing papers based on what we've read about writing papers.
Wow.
Yeah, headache. Anyway. So I was going through some of my papers I wrote for that class, and I came across this one, and it kind of reminded me of some of the stuff we've talked about here. So I'm going to read a few excerpts from an essay I wrote. Bear with me, it's an essay. But yeah, I'm just going to go with it. And I call it The Case of the Golden Urinal. I'm an artist, and in my mind, that makes me creative. But thinking about creativity is not something that can be defined in a concrete way. It's a relative term that allows for an individual to interpret his or her own connotations of the work, as well as what the word can be applied to. What one person sees as creative might not be creative to the rest of the population. For example, I was recently debating with a friend of mine whether or not a golden urinal he saw in a modern art museum could indeed be considered art. He vehemently argued that any moron with a can of spray paint could have created a golden urinal. To him, this piece was not creative, and I, not knowing enough about the piece, was not able to form a conclusion. However, being that I am respectful of modern art, I can certainly see how painting a urinal gold could be considered creative and therefore art. Creativity in the case of the golden urinal does not come down to what was done, but more or less why it was done. My friend was correct. Any moron could have taken a can of spray paint and attempted to pass off a plumbing fixture as fine art. But even though any moron could have, only one of us did. The artist could have just simply been trying to provoke a debate that was now taking place over the urinal. Perhaps this is a deeper meaning behind the painted porcelain that took more effort to achieve than the painting process itself. And that effort and the passion that went into it might qualify the urinal as art. Then again, my argument is mere speculation about what an artist, which I know nothing about. My friend could be correct. The painter could have just been a con artist with a can of spray paint, but nonetheless, it was his actions that sparked this debate. And even if that action was only an accident, does that devalue its creativity? It's not necessary to be aware of one's actions in order to be creative. It is not a requirement to have a complete understanding of our actions. However, it is important to consider what brought about those actions and what consequences will come from them. So maybe the golden urinal was not creative, but it certainly created a creative debate.